the 4 steps to the Epiphany, this model, I have in a lot more detail that you will be able to get as a PDF. You'll be able to download that. I've had a number of students asking whether the slides will be available. Yes, they will be available. We'll upload it as PDF. That's no problem. So make notes where you add value, but don't need to copy the content. You'll get that. Okay. So let's go through very quickly what each of these mean. So if we're looking at customer discovery, we try to figure out who are the customers for my product. Is my product important to them? Are there customers in a market for my product? We try to get out into the field and listen to customers, discovering how they work and what their key problems are. Very different to the product development model. We kind of took the idea and started developing and moved it and shipped. And here we're going out very early on, interviewing potential customers. And what we get back from that is either we understand what their problems are better, and we can focus the features of our product to their needs, which makes it more relevant for them, or we find out that our product doesn't have customers, or who we thought were customers are not our primary customers. In any case, valuable feedback, because then we can cycle through again if it's not the customers that we're looking for. We have that opportunity before we do a lot of the spending. Customer validation, we're trying to build a repeatable sales roadmap. What that basically means, we're trying to find the reasons for them to want to buy at a profit, okay? Because if we're not selling at a profit, we don't want to scale, which would be the next phase, trying to scale. So we only want to scale when we get customers that are willing to buy and we can still make a profit. Okay, so customer validation proves you found a set of customers in a market that reacts positively to the product by buying it. Repeatable business and a product that equals a profitable business model. If you get to there, then finding someone, an investor that can help you scale is not as difficult. Because you've found the market, you have traction, and what you need then is the marketing dollars to scale it. Investors at that point in time are more interested than you're still developing the product. Okay. Customer creation. Here I'm actually doing that scaling. It's placed after the validation because the heavy marketing spend happens now, not beforehand. Beforehand, I don't really know who I'm after. The customer and the market. I don't know, is it a niche market I'm after? Is it a mainstream market I'm after? Okay? Very different approaches also in those different markets. That you will be able to read in the PDF. I won't go into that much detail in this piece. But there's a very different approach depending on which market you're after. Okay? Whether there's already established competition there. That's hard to enter into a market like that. Building a strong brand and heavy advertising only makes sense in markets where your customers understand your product or service. So for a startup and a new market, the brand isn't as important because there's no one there really, a new market. If you had a brand, it helps you go in there, but thinking that you're going to get into the market through a brand is not viable. Company building is basically after you've gone through all of these cycles, found a market, have a repeatable sales, then you start scaling the company as well. Not just the marketing, but now you start putting all of the formal positions in place, be it VP of sales or marketing, etc., and all of the hierarchies. We saw that in the 4 stages of entrepreneurial. That was also kind of the 4th. You can almost map these in this area. Crossing the chasm, okay? In a real world, this is what this would look like, okay? You just move slowly from left to right, and it grows, and you're somehow in that mainstream market. Unfortunately, in technology, it doesn't work like that. Okay? Also interesting, actually, there's quite a number of people that have been looking at this phenomena. Okay? So you'll see people calling them, we call them technology or early adopters there, and they're calling them innovators here and early adopters, early majority and late majority for the markets. You'll see these terminologies depending on who's writing about it, but you'll see this bell curve, and you'll see the split there. Okay. In this first innovator, this very left group, they pursue new technologies aggressively, like me, very early adapters, as you know. Sometimes seek them out before the formal marketing program has been launched. This is because technology is a central interest in their life. How many would call themselves this here? Innovators? Technology, early? Okay. Early adopters, similar, but typically not technologists. They can appreciate benefits of new technology, rely on their own intuition and vision, though. Okay, we have probably most of the rest of you in that, except that you're probably technologists as well. But early majority, they share some of the early adopters' ability to relate to technology, but driven by a strong sense of practicability. So they're going to want to have a return for buying new technology. So they're, you know, instead of being, oh, this is cool, they're going to say, but what can I do with this? What return do I get with this? Can I see my calendar here? Can I do this? Can I do that? How does this work if I'm in a foreign country? Can I still see my data? The late majority shares concerns of the early majority. One major additional one, they are not comfortable with their own ability to handle technology product. Typically your grandmother. Okay, they'll look at something and they'll say, don't touch it. I'll break it, you know, whatever. Okay. The market is, though, interesting because at this point in time you've probably gotten a return of your R&D costs. And therefore the margins are relatively high, and even reducing the cost still gives you good margins on the products. So as a customer, they're interesting. Hard to sell to them, but interesting. And then the laggards, they are, I wouldn't focus on the laggards. They'll buy or not. Okay? High-tech marketing model. Typically, I'm going through this from left to right. Typically, we move from left to right. We try to win that market, get endorsement, and then move into the next one with those endorsements, and then you kind of catch the ear of the next ones. And then you move with the endorsements plus endorsements into the third, and then you endorsements plus endorsements plus endorsements into the fourth. So you kind of move from left to right with all of them stepping up and saying this is a good product, this is a good technology, etc. This is the one that we've looked at. So you can see there's some cracks in the curve, even between the others, but they're easier to get across. The one big one is between that early majority and that mainstream market. This symbolizes a dissociation between the two groups, meaning they don't really relate to each other. They're not on the same page, not on the same wavelength, whatever terminology you use there. If you present the product in the same manner as you've presented it to the group to the left. So it doesn't mean that they can't understand the product, it just means that if you're going there and presenting it like greatest new cool product to your grandmother, then you're not going to get there. But if you come with the product and say, hey, Grandma, take a look. All of your recipes are on this device. And you can look them up while you're cooking. And you can, you just need to take that and make it relevant for them. Take a product, understand the customer, and describe it in a fashion that's relevant to them. Going from left to right means first identifying if that crack can be overcome. Can the product serve the needs of the new group? And if you can get an endorsement, then you can possibly move there. But then there's the mega crack, the chasm, far most unforgiving transition, and almost more dangerous as this typically goes unrecognized. You very often don't recognize that you're not crossing the chasm. And that's because the customers very often look very much alike. Both groups, the early adopter and the early majority, the customer list and size of the orders can look the same. Very often you can't recognize, am I still to the left or to the right of that chasm? The basis for the sale, what's been promised implicitly, explicitly, and what must be delivered is radically different. And it's basically not an issue of the product, it's an issue of expectation on the customer side. And that's why you need to understand your customers to address the expectation in a different fashion depending on which market you're going to. The early adopters looking more for a jump on the competition. Okay. I have a cool device, you don't. Okay. That's kind of personal competition, but whatever you have as a product. And the early majority is looking for a product improvement. So they're looking more for evolution versus revolution, where the early adopter is looking more for revolution, kind of, I've got something that you don't have. A lot of emotion, we spoke about that, and opinion, okay? While it's easy to find innovators, getting them to the early market can be extremely difficult. Also to consider, these are the market sizes, okay? So depending on which market you want to go after, if you're looking at being in a niche market, that's fine. You don't have to try to articulate the advantage of your product to that mainstream market. Being in a niche market sometimes sounds, oh, I'm in a niche market. Sometimes sounds bad. But a very focused approach can help you very often, first of all, be profitable in that market, and very often grow into the next market. Where's Apple? I would toss into the, I would say they're a niche market.
So why not laggards? Why not?
You think they're laggards?
Yeah, 10 years before Apple.
Where's Nokia today?
Non-existent.
Hmm?
Non-existent anymore, basically. And if you take iPad, for example, iPad technology was developed by Hitachi in the beginning of, at the end of the 90s. So it's very interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't say they're laggards. I would say they are focusing on a niche, but not technology niche, on a lifestyle niche. Okay? Because most people are probably buying Apple and Apple products not only because of technology, but because they're cool or express a lifestyle. Okay? So these are things that you have to consider. But I would toss Apple into a niche area. They're not 50% of the market. They have very specific buyers. Okay.
Customers want to consider itself that they are early adopters. So it's like only customers going.
Yeah, and think back to the slide yesterday, the light bulb. Okay, there was several different patents on that 40 years before Edison had his idea. Okay, the people didn't live to see their patent go through. Or be, but does not count who had the first idea. The only thing counts is who gets into the market and sells. So, to the technology, who are technology based here, background technology, don't be shy. Technology, hands up. Okay. For you, don't think of the features as the reason going to be to sell the product. Okay? You need features, but you don't need all of them at the first customer shipment. And they're not going to always be the reason for customers to buy. As much as we technologists would like that to be the case. I'm a computer scientist by background, but once you try to step into this entrepreneurial area, you find out that it's a mixture of all of this. You have to understand the market, you have to understand your customer, and your customer is going to like your feature, but maybe not all of it. And it's not going to sell by itself. Okay? So, let's need to move forwards. So, a business plan. We spoke about business plans earlier. We've used business plans and business plan competitions as a platform for an entrepreneur to exercise their skills before they get onto the market. Okay? You need a business plan when you're on the market to try to articulate your idea, your market, the customers you've interviewed, technology, everything to your investors. So it kind of serves multiple functions at the same time. Interesting is they're obsolete as soon as they're done. Because by the time you've finished it, something has changed somewhere. I mean, you would need self-modifying foils, slides, that kind of update automatically. They're unreliable as predictors of future events. So why is the plan so important in entrepreneurship education? We spoke about that, so I'll skip a little bit. The building blocks, elevator pitch. We had that yesterday, 30 seconds, kind of, elevator pitch is when you have the opportunity, happen to be standing at the elevator, and the CEO steps into the elevator with you. You have the opportunity while you're going up to talk about your idea. And you get the feedback going down. Okay? The second piece is the chalk talk. Okay? So being able to go up here, very quickly 5-10 minutes. This is what we're thinking about. This is what we're going to do. This is the market. This is how we go there. Okay? PowerPoint. We have here, it says 10 to 30 minutes. You need multiple versions of that. You need a version that's 10 minutes. You need a version that's 15 minutes, that's 20, 30. And the reason for that is, at some point in time, you're going to actually get a slot to present at a VC. Let's say 2 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. You're there at 2 p.m. 10 after 2, you're still waiting. Quarter after 2, you're still waiting because they're still doing something. And all of a sudden the door opens and they say, well, I actually have a dinner appointment. I have to fly out. So, you know, should we reschedule? And you say, well, do you have 10 minutes? Yeah, we have 10 minutes. So you pull your 10-minute version out. Okay? Or even your 5-minute version, if they only have 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, you do what the vacuum cleaner salesman does. What does a vacuum cleaner salesman do? Knock, knock, knock. The door opens. Foot in the door. And you don't let them close the door. Right? Until you told your story. You know, you toss a lot of dirt on the floor before they can say anything. So the people say, okay, open the door, clean it up, please, you know. So, but that's what you need to do. You need to get a foot in the door, okay? So multiple versions of the PowerPoint. Because it is very difficult on the spot to reduce your 30-minute presentation down to 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You've got all of this material, you don't know how to zim through it. So you present it in a way, and you have to exercise that anyway, so you need to go through these different versions. But that is a necessity. That will need to be done. Then you have a demo. The demo should work. That would be good. Okay. Leaves a pretty bad impression. When Ola was speaking about this, wasn't that smartphone on the... Were you talking about... Someone was talking about that today. Okay, someone was introduced... Wasn't it? Yeah. Smartphone introducing and didn't have internet and didn't have... So anyway, how can you introduce a smartphone that doesn't have internet connection? Okay. So those things should work. The deal. So when you're getting invested, you need to think about lots of things. The legal formation. Are you a for-profit, non-profit? Okay. Are you limited liability or full liability? Those have implications. The governance of the company. Term sheet, this is for the valuation, but also puts down shareholder rights, who's on the board, transaction approvals. First team agreement, how do you divide the pie? So how do you divide the ownership? How do you divide profits? How do you divide this? If you don't think of that early on, first, very early on, it's hard to fix later. IP rights, what happens if someone comes in and has the patent on a technology and then after 6 months decides to leave the company? Does the company still have the rights to the patent or not? Those type of things you need to think about. Contracts, leases. One of the team member leaves and the lease contract for your offices was on that person. Get kicked out of the office. Okay? Business plan truths. The business plan is important, of course it is. Preparing helps build also the team's vision. When you sit down together, You're talking about the details. And during that time, and this is, something that Steve Blank also said, the company is always in a temporary function, and the business plan is always only temporary. You're going to modify that many times during the life cycle. The planning process never stops. Use a guide and outline. How you communicate the plan is critical. And we'll be talking about that in a second. Presentation. Who's written a business plan before? Okay. Who's presented a business plan before? Good. I've had groups that have never presented a business plan or never presented before. How many of you were happy with it? 1, 2, okay, 3. Business plan, executive summary 2 to 3 slides, company business 4 to 5, market analysis 1 to 2 pages. Competition, advantage 1 to 2, marketing 2 to 3, technology 2 to 3, operations 1 to 2, management 1, financial summary. This is kind of an outline of what a business plan should look like. Now, for educational purposes, we work very often with what we call a dehydrated one that's only about 10 pages altogether, 4 to 10 pages, just so it doesn't get too high volume. But this is about what an investor would be looking for, okay? So the process is you write the plan, you test the plan, opportunity recognition again. So this thing goes through a couple of cycles until you get it right. Who should write the business plan? Primarily the CEO. The rest, the team members must understand their responsibilities in that team, must understand the overall plan, and validate the team's ability to work together. Input from advisors, very valuable. The audience, first of all, you. It's if you go through the business plan and you figure out you can't find repeatable customers, you can't make a profit, kind of a good hint that it's maybe not the right idea to continue. So it's a good exercise to pull everything together, the whole market, the whole product, etc., into a document to understand whether this is really viable or not. But it's also good for your team, for your advisors, and your investors. Okay. Kind of in that order. How do you start? Just start writing. Create an executive summary or a pitch. Start with an outline from a guide. Focus on writing the unknowns. It's easy to write what you know about. And kind of that awkward stuff that I don't know, it's easy to push aside and ignore. You actually need to pull that up front and do that first, because that will clarify many of the other things, whether it is viable or not. What a plan must do, it must be original, present a compelling opportunity, present a dedicated, passionate team that fit, be coherent, shows your work in the document, support to other supporting documents. And what's the toughest section to write, besides those unknowns that we spoke about, but we've done that by now? The financials. The finance person would say that's the easiest part. Technology is hard. Okay? Depends on where you are. Executive summary, probably. Putting it very, very compact into a summary. Very often you have supporting documents that are confidential. I mean, you will never find, never is a strong word, but almost never find a VC that will sign a non-disclosure agreement. That limits them. So you have to try to articulate the compelling opportunity without telling them everything. Okay? So confidential stuff, really confidential stuff, not in there. Oh. Product development plans, partnerships are in there. And you might want to talk about partnerships that might help, but only if you really have them. Don't talk about things that you're thinking about doing. Hiring plans, don't talk about them unless you've really already hired them and they've signed. Market research, international. You have to think whether that helps you or not, whether disclosing it helps you or not. Intellectual property details, competitive research. You don't always need to point your investors onto your weaknesses. Agreements and contracts. It becomes a standalone document. It starts with the problem solution paragraph. Summarize each section of the business plan, but spend most time on the product description, the competitive advantage, the business model and projections, the management team. Mission statement, maybe later, not necessary in the business plan. Once you've built the company and start growing, you need a mission statement. Company description, a vision, base product offering and problem solved, the market served, company history, location, compelling highlights, especially the opportunity, people, technology, achievements and trends, value proposition, stage of the business. On the pitches, remember what VCs are looking for. They're looking for a market, a team, people, and the traction that you can get in that market. So that goes back to identifying the right customers and actually being able to sell to them and make a profit. That's traction. Now, how do I get more traction? I need money. Okay, this is a good opening for discussion. Introduce your idea, but quickly talk about market, team, and traction. Most people put the team at the end and often never get to it before the VC has to leave. Remember my 10 euro thing? I still have it here somewhere. What did that mean? What did that discussion mean? We were talking about trust. Trust. Okay? So why would a VC give you money? Great idea, great market. But why you? Okay? It's a lot about the team. You can have a mediocre idea, niche market, and a great team, and you might still get funded, even though the opportunity isn't as big. But if they believe in you that you can pull that off, you might win. And I did that again. Pitch details. Wear your uniforms. Okay? Dress appropriately. Okay? I had once a lecture, we were doing this pretty much one of the first times, and I had this here, wear your uniforms. And the next day we had the presentation of the business plans. And they all came in suits and nice dresses and came to pitch. And we had this in the Senate room of the university, so, you know, leather and mahogany type environment. And all of the other professors were coming to me and saying, "What's going on? What's happening? We've never seen the students like this before." I said, "I told them to wear their uniforms." What? So, anyway, so it's a symbol of respect to your counterparts there. Have good business cards. Professionally printed, so they don't smudge. You know, not on a printer that if the ink gets wet, you know, you can't read it anymore. Dress nicely, I spoke about that. Sign of respect. The next thing, I hired one engineer that this was the dot-com era, and we could see his, you know, CV and all of this, and he came to the interview, you know, hair like this, about 6 or 7 piercings, leather jacket, t-shirt at least a week old, big boots, no laces, you know. And walked in for an interview. And this was the best person we could ever have for the interview. He was a college dropout, you know, kind of on the CV. Was exactly the person we were looking for. And our humans resource department was basically, you know, had a no on all of the tick-offs, saying, you know, doesn't fit, you know, doesn't fit. And I still hired him. Because this dot-com era, he was supposed to talk in his role to the CTOs of these internet startup companies. And he looked just like them. So, great. You know, he looked just like them. He would walk in, and they were immediately, you know, talking details. But in a conservative, you know, big corporation, hiring someone like that is a major task. You know, just from the way he looked. So, I accept that, but hard for some of the HR people to accept people like that. So, unless you're the uber geek, and he was, okay, you won't get away with jeans and a t-shirt. Be on time. VCs really have a busy. Know how much time you have. I spoke about that. Plan accordingly. Bring key team members with you. So if you're going to split the talk into different pieces, have those people with you. The VC can evaluate the team firsthand. Just sending the CEO, okay, but having, you know, a couple of others, okay, they've got a really good team together. Have multiple people talk. We are evaluating the team, okay? Stand up when talking. Practice and know your story. So just walking in after you've written your business plan, no. Practice it. Practice it within the team. Get some advisors to listen to it. Give feedback on your presentation style, etc. Make sure your stories match. I told this to someone here, but we had a couple of teams presenting, and the CEO would be presenting, and he would say, and we have 2 gigabit throughput, you know, and he continues talking, and the CTO's over here. What do the investors think? Something isn't matching, right? They're not talking, they're not, you know. So be part of the team presentation, you know. Saying the wrong number can be excused, you know, when you go over afterwards and say, no, you saw it's not 2, it's 1.5. Then he could fix it at some point in time, saying, well, I misstated a number here, it's 1.5. So your stories have to match, okay? The team, if it's presenting, it's 20 minutes, it's 30 minutes. If one person is talking, the others need to stand on the side and be quiet. All of these things distract, and they don't add to the value of the team. It's only 20, 30 minutes, so, straighten up. Put your hand somewhere if you're not speaking. And basically, be, in parentheses, invisible until your role comes up. Show enthusiasm. Well, we have the greatest thing in earth, and all we need is $5 million investment, so if you could, just here, just give us the money. We have the biggest project you could believe in. All you need to do is invest, and we can scale sales to $20 million this year, 40 next year, 80 the year after. We need your help. We need an advisor on our board. We need this. Show enthusiasm. Get that out there. In the course, we usually do about a week on presentation. After you've done your initial company build, the business plan, we work a week just on the presentation skills. I'll do a little bit here. Element of an elevator pitch in 60 seconds or less. This is kind of a guideline for an elevator pitch. 4, whoever the customer is. Who, what their need is. Okay. The product is the description that benefits. Unlike our competition, our product does this. So for the banking industry, who need high-performance back-end servers? The new super-duper product over here is a great solution that doubles and triples the throughput and benefits the end users. Unlike our competitions over there, our product gives you half the cost at double the performance. Now, each team could probably pull that up, just taking this as an example for the elevator pitch. Okay? It's kind of a guideline. If you cover that, you've covered the basics of what the people want to hear in the elevator pitch. It addresses why you, what it does, where the market is, etc. It addresses what you do, what the problem you solve, how you're different, why should I care. And then we've taken here pieces and put a course presenting for success. Okay? So why do we present it all? You're going to be presenting the rest of your lives. You're going to be selling the rest of your lives. Who wants to sell? Not everyone. Okay? Selling is turning a doorknob, right? Yeah. We will be selling the rest of our lives. We're selling concepts. Some of us will sell product. Some of us will sell ourselves, our competence. And a lot of it is about pitching. A lot of it is about telling the story effectively telling the story. So we should know a lot and a lot of tools on how to present. We will be presenting the rest of our lives. Selling. Use that, selling the rest of our lives. When I left the university, I had the first opportunity I had at Intel. I was offered a job at Intel. They asked me, do you want a job in sales or do you want a job in engineering? I said, engineering, I'm an engineer. 2 years later, I was selling. I was selling competency to customers that needed support. It wasn't doorknob rubbing, knocking on the door and selling something on the door. First, we present to exchange information. Second, to get formal approval. Third, combination of the above. That's it. Why do we present? You can toss everything into those two buckets and the combination of those two. Exchange information, get approval, combination of the above. Why are so many presentations unsuccessful? I've been into many presentations that were kind of reading the 500-page document, and you kind of lose track after about page 2. Page 4, you're asleep. That is not a presentation. That's a nice document. Good documents are for reading and not presenting. So you need to have a different approach when presenting. So the top 10, we underestimate the audience, is one. Going through and sorting these afterwards, so you kind of get it. Too much detail, no clear message, no clear intent, foils are too cluttered, presentation is not structured, not enough presenter power. I'm talking to, can you hear me back there? No? Tough luck. You didn't hear that, did you? Good. Okay. Weak presentation skills. Okay. Content and time slots not in sync. So you should always try to sync what you're presenting with the slots that you have. Hostility in the room. That's a special one, especially in companies or in corporations. But we will talk about it. Let's sort those, content, structure, and people. So the content, too much detail, no clear message, no clear intent. Foils are too cluttered, presentation not structured, content and time slot not in sync. People, hostility in the room, we underestimate the audience. Not enough presenter power, weak presentation skills. So you can kind of sort those and cluster those different things. Content, too much detail, probably the #1 issue. Okay, that kind of goes with, almost hand in hand with underestimating the audience, but I'll get to that later. You need to focus. It's not possible that the audience is going to understand the details in the same level that you do. And trying to bring them that quickly up to speed also won't work. So focus on conveying the idea at the level that doesn't need that much detail. Typically hard for the technologists. Okay? You start, and then you introduce a new word, and oh, I need to explain that word, and then oh, I used this word, I didn't explain that one yet. So you kind of get into this endless list of things that you're trying to explain. So you think that the audience will understand it. No clear message. How many presentations have you heard where you got information but not a message afterward? Huh? Why am I here? No clear intent. At the end, you were asking, why is this person presenting at all? The audience needs to know why you're here and why they are spending their time with you. At Intel, we focused on a presentation model that if you had senior management come because they were supposed to sign off spending money, investing people, then you would want them to know that they are there to decide that. So very early on in the presentation, this is what we're discussing today. And the reason we're presenting this is we need $2 million from you. We need that decision today. And we need 20 people, and we need that decision today. And we need whatever other resources we need. And we will now tell you what this project is about. And so now you have several people sitting there that have been, they've heard, oh, I'm the person that decides on the 2 million or 5 million. Oh, I'm the person that decides on the 80 people or whatever I need, are listening. Because they're listening to understand whether they can say yes or no. And they know that in that meeting, they need to decide. Structure. Foil's too cluttered. I've had one presentation. It was one from one of my bosses at the time. Had 42 bullets on one page. I think it was font size 2. So if you printed it, you could read it with, a magnifying glass. But on the screen, no way. Are the people reading rather than listening? Okay? There's tools for that. I use builds. Because what I've experienced is when I have a full slide in front of me, I start reading. And I start losing. I'm still listening, but I'm starting to lose because I'm reading somewhere where the person's not talking about anymore. So if you have that people reading instead of listening, then focus on maybe using builds as an example. That's one tool about it. Try to stick to 4 to 5 main bullets per slide. Use builds if you like. I use them. We'll talk about that. There's also a hiccup on that, using builds. Presentation's not structured. So, okay. Heard that, don't know what it means. Kind of, where does that fit in? How many presentations were structured like a research document? The next 5 slides I'll talk about are the content. You've basically seen that. Don't laugh. You'll see some of those things too. Very clearly and crisply structure your presentation. Content and time slot not in sync. Okay? So you have 20 minutes, and at 20 minutes you're still on slide 5 from 300 or something. And Alar is going to hit me as soon as I hit my time limit, but I still have a few slides more. We have, right? We still have half an hour, right? We said 1 hour 20. Okay. Because I did reduce a little bit here to fit in there. Always beware of the time you have. Create a presentation around a time slot, typically about 60% content, and leave about 40% for questions and answers. If questions come up that are not during the presentation that are not to clarify what you're talking about, ask them to ask those questions later. You have a Q&A part. And then questions that are more, about the deal, they come in that 40% time slot. So you can push people back and say, okay, please ask that in the Q&A part. It's not to clarify the content. Reduce a 30-minute presentation to 15-minute presentation. Sometimes that doesn't work. And from that experience and from some of these pitches going to a VC comes the recommendation, have those different time slots available. If you know it's really important, these are one-time opportunities, have them available. People, hostility in the room. You, as presenting to a VC, probably don't have that. You have the VC, you're talking to them. But if you're in a corporation and you're pitching for money, for people, you're probably in competition with the department next to you that's also pitching for money and for people. And the budgets are always limited, so one of you two are probably going to get it. And you wouldn't believe how hostile it can get, asking nice, naughty questions about your project, or the return, or the validity, or whatever, from the other team. They ask questions because they're in the same room. So if you know that you're going to compete with your proposal, either you get with that other group ahead of time and kind of gentleman's agreement to not be hostile at least, and let management decide what they want. Or you have to think of some naughty questions yourself. Okay? We underestimate the audience. Very often we try, and it's come up a little bit in some of the flow here, we try to educate the audience as well. We're assuming they don't understand anything of what we're doing. As I said a little bit earlier, try to articulate things so that you don't need to explain them, everything. And if they don't understand it, questions will come up in the Q&A, which you can answer very, very focused on that misunderstanding. We need to inform them, and if we need support, ask for it. Not enough presenter power. Again, this is trust. You need to go after the kill. Sounds very brutal, but if you want, you need to go after it. Very short expression in American language, if you do not ask, you will not get. Very short, but that's exactly it. You have to go and ask for it. This is a learnable skill, needs to exercise. What I've typically done is I've booked a 500-person room and had each of the team go up and present 5 minutes, kind of their hobby, without a microphone. And I would go up to the highest, furthest seat, and I would keep on going this until I heard their voice. Everyone can fill a 500-person room if they want to. Their voices sometimes sound for themselves awkward, funny. The pitch goes up a little bit because they're pressing more air through. But everyone can fill a 500-person room if needed. We'll talk about a little bit about some of that a little bit later. Weak presentation skills, also learnable skill. So a structured example would be the intent. Use the elevator pitch for that piece. Then go into the vision, opportunity at hand, objective. The status, issues, recommendations. With that, you get down to about 10 slides. Something that you can easily pitch for a VC. Q&A. Intent, elevator pitch. We had that. Okay. And this is an example, hypothetical one, you know. Our vision is to create a machine that can convert CO2 into its components C and O2 at a huge industrial level while binding C into other compounds and releasing O2 back into the atmosphere. Anybody want to join that project? I do. Okay. The opportunity at hand is to create this fabulous machine which will have worldwide positive impact and demand while making significant profit. Our objectives are to create a prototype by next week, acquire a patent, prove that with this prototype that the vision is viable and can be done at huge industrial level. Achieve next level VC funding of so-and-so $1 million. I spoke about they want to know also what the next level might be of investment. Get orders for 10 such oxygen plants and do an IPO. Intent. The status is to create a prototype by so-and-so. We've designed the product and have purchased the BOM, bill of materials, etc., etc. The issues are the prototype will only have 80% of calculated efficiency. This can be solved but needs a redesign of component XYZ. Very open. VCs, different to banks. Anyone here from a bank? Good. VCs, different to banks, are your partners. They have a viable interest in your success. They really want you to succeed. They will help you. They will put someone on your advisory board if needed. If you're missing someone, they can tie some of their connections if needed. A bank just wants their money back with interest. They don't care if you succeed or not. But because we're talking to a potential partner, we also need to tell them what's going on. So, okay, we're only getting 80% right now, so tell them we can fix that. We already know what the issue is. We need to redesign this component. Recommendations are receive so-and-so many to finalize the prototype and file for patent. I need to hire this and that person, etc. Q&A, okay. Short example of how a presentation could be structured. Okay. Communication channels. This is one of my favorites. How many communication channels do we have? Hello? Well, there's one here, right? There's one there. This is also a channel, right? Number 2 is here, the voice. Eyes. Eyes. With my eyes, I can see what you're doing, but you can also use eye contact in the audience to make sure that you see whether they're following your presentation. You see very often when you're talking about something, you see nods. You see whether they're grasping, whether they're up to speed. And you can use eye contact as you go through the audience during the presentation also to work with it. So I have eye contact right now over here, and this piece of the audience is waiting desperately for me to move my eyes over there so they can get a clue of what I'm talking about. And the longer I'm staying over here, the more desperate that they get. Okay, so I'm still over here, and we have eye contact. We can see each other, but they can't. And that's why they're so desperate. And it's not until I move over here and find eye contact again with the other part of the audience that they feel that I'm addressing them. Okay? So you can strategically, in your presentation, it takes a while to do that, but you can strategically use eye contact with your audience. One, to understand them. A second is to get more pressure onto a different part. Depends what you're using it for. Okay? So, eyes, very important. And it's not only one way. We think of eyes usually as one channel. I'll talk about that, one direction. Ears, of course we hear. We hear if people are talking in the back. We hear other noises like the mower outside. You know, so we raise our voice, we adapt. Use these channels to work with your audience. Left hand. This is my left hand. Okay? Left hand, right hand. So if you're only talking with one, okay, this is a crutch on the other side. You're missing part of your potential. And this is why this is good and bad, because it's limiting your capability of gestures. Okay? So when I put that down, now I can talk about the whole world and not just half the world. Okay? And I can express myself. I can talk about it. I can use this. I can, two thumbs up for this or whatever. You have more information going across. Part of the presenter power, part of the person that you can express. Okay? Unfortunately, I need this to get to the next one. Okay? So you just need to know if I'm using one of these, it has the goodness that I can control the speed of the way the presentation is going. On the other side, it limits some of the gesture movement that you could use. Okay? Right hand. And you have your whole body. Okay? So, luckily, we have here a microphone here, and we have microphones here, so I don't have to stick. But very often you get, and I moved it off here intentionally, very often you get the gooseneck, and you're limited here to talking, and you can't move around, and you're also missing then some of the information you can convey. You need to be able to use that body movement as well, especially if you have a larger, broader audience, to be able to move and address the people on the one side so they don't feel left out, and then also move over to the other side and bring that again across. Okay? So we have quite a number of communication channels that we can strategically use to convey our message. Strategically use to convey the message. Some of them are only output, and some of them are in both directions, or input, and some of them are both directions. The eyes. The eyes are very powerful. I have one anecdote, interesting. Anyone here from Bulgaria? No one from Bulgaria. Turkey? They can probably express or understand that. I was holding a keynote in Bulgaria. And I would go through during the keynote with my eyes, contacts. And there was one individual I saw, okay, he would, nod, and you go off, and then you come back, and that individual, okay. And then you keep on continuing, and then you come back, and the individual nods like this. And I did that a number of times. And then you come and thinking, well, why? What disagreement here? And then after the keynote, after the presentation, there was kind of a bistro, the high tables. And so I waited until he was finished on his table talking to people, and I was finished on mine. And then I kind of went over and I said, well, how did you like the presentation? And he said, yeah, it was great. And I said, well, I saw you, nodding in disagreement a couple of times. I wonder what that was about. He said, disagreement? I said, yeah, you went like that. And he said, oh, that's Bulgarian. Bulgarian, this means yes. And I said, huh? But sometimes you were nodding like this. He said, yes, my mother is Turkish, and she nods like this. I said, you confused the hell out of me. So also try to understand where your audience is from, and try to understand some of the cultural differences there, because you will misinterpret, like I did, some of what you're seeing in the audience, okay? Case studies on presentation skills. Remember this here? Now we need the audio. So I need to get out of that. And here, here. It's supposed to go to the menu here. No, title.
Team Healers.
Okay, so this is harmonic, which we had up there. Helios. So let's look at Helios.
I just want to quickly introduce our Team Healers. What's that, Gentry?
So presentation at UC Berkeley at a business plan competition.
Well, Helios has an exciting opportunity to commercialize a recent breakthrough from the Berkeley lab. And our technology relates to solar cells with extraordinary conversion efficiency, at 35%. Now, to put that into some sort of context, silicon technology, which dominates at the moment, has an efficiency between 10 and 20%. So 35% is quite a leap forward. So we're going to divide the talk into two parts. I'm going to take the first three sections. And I'm going to tell you about our unique technology, introduce our team, and tell you about our entry target market, which is satellite power. And then Zach's going to take over. He's going to tell you about the growth opportunities we have for a mass market. So I realised that not everyone here is an expert in photovoltaic technology, so we're going to have just a quick tutorial. And first of all, in the bottom left-hand corner, this is a solar cell. And the basic idea is to absorb as many photons as possible and then convert that into electrical energy. And the key for high efficiency is to get the right semiconductor material. So you want to absorb as much of that solar spectrum as possible, all the way from the infrared to the ultraviolet. Now, unfortunately, up to now, any single material has only been able to absorb a portion of that solar spectrum. And consequently, a lot of photons are wasted and the efficiency is not as high as it could be. Well, with our new material, we've got a much broader spectral absorption with a theoretical efficiency of 54%.
So, just as a short impression of how the presentation style is from that one. Didn't we have harmonic as well?
No.
Wasn't.
Proton power.
I don't think we have proton there. No. But we had world of good, right? Yeah. Let me just show you Helios very shortly. No, that was Helios. Harmonic very shortly.
I'm here today, this is Harmonic Devices. I'm here today with Justin Black, Gianluca Piazza, Phil Stefanu, and John Huang. And we're here to tell you about a revolutionary wireless RF component startup based on research breakthroughs made here at UC Berkeley's engineering labs. So we'll start out with a cell phone that we're all familiar with. If you ripped off the cover, which I know you all like to do all the time, you can see something like this underneath. Now, Harmonic Devices aims to integrate and miniaturize a whole class of passive electronic components that had previously been unintegratable. And I'm talking about surface acoustic wave or SAW filters and quartz crystal oscillators. They're used to generate the stable timing reference and do the RF and IF filtering in a cell phone. Now, our vision is to miniaturize and integrate into a single chip to free up board space like this. And you can imagine this board space being used to add a bigger application processor, add a hard drive, do other things to make your phone either smaller or more functional. We're going to deliver a part that's 6 times smaller. It's going to be cheaper initially and get much cheaper in the future and higher performance than what's out there today. So with that in mind, I know I've probably already lost a lot of you, already bored a lot of you with this circuit diagram, so I'll give you our vision of the future in a movie.
Merman. Merman.
This would be a lot funnier if you could see it. If you've seen Zoolander, you probably remember this scene. Right now, Ben Stiller is answering a cell phone that's like a postage stamp.
Hello? Derek, you hearing me? God?
Well, anyway, it's a lot funnier if you could see it, so.
So, what do we say about working demos, right? Okay.
Next up, we have World of Good.
Hi, everyone. I am so excited to be here to tell you about World of Good and this amazing company that we're building. This is not an idea. This is a business that we've already started and that is in operation to great success. This humble kiosk that you see here is already helping to change lives around the world. What we are doing is building a very strong distribution company, applying a strong business model to a market where business itself can drive tremendous impact and social value. The company stands on its numbers first and on our products. Here you see a quote from one of our best customers, Whole Foods, here in the Bay Area, who has installed these kiosks into their stores, and it has become a one-stop solution to offer gifts to their customers. All of us see the trend that's happening in the marketplace now, which is that customers are increasingly looking for products that have social value, that have meaning behind them, and that they can feel good about buying. World of Good is a brand and a company that is bringing those products to the market in a way that is easy for customers to find. The other thing you see here is a quote from a supplier who has seen tremendous increases because of the work of World of Good. We've entered into a concept test with 70 of these in retail stores around the Bay Area with just an initial investment of only $100,000. We've been able to now generate sales of $500,000, and the best part is that the sales per square foot that we're generating off this kiosk are 5 times higher than industry averages. And in the process, what we found is that there's an opportunity to build a brand that connects with customers and makes fair trade product easy to identify in the store. World of Good is a distribution model. We're taking an environment with many small suppliers and bringing
Okay. With the limited time, I won't go through all of it or all of them, but I think you got a taste of the different presentation styles. From a presentation form, who do you think was number 1? World of Good? World of Good. World of Good actually didn't win that competition because they were not a technology product, a technology startup. But during that presentation, they got funded from the jury. The jury were VCs, and one of them said, I'll put in 50,000 if you do. And she got 250,000 that afternoon, which was what she was looking for the next step. Presentation skills are key to deliver your idea. Something to really focus on. That's why we put usually a week into that, with video feedback, mentoring, discussing, and going through that. Okay? So I've got about a minute time.
But who won it?
Who won it? Helios, which you had up here as well. I'm just thinking. I have a minute time, right? Let me go. Because we had that question and I like to keep my promises. There's some, you'll get this all, okay? So this goes into how an investor sees where to invest and how, okay? And then who brought up how much percentage of the company would move, the investor would be requesting? Who asked that? Yesterday, you did, okay. This kind of addresses that, so you'll get that. Okay, this is great. You can't see. Basically, this is looking at the business model is strong, and you're either the execution risk is execution risk or a creation risk. Should have that in white. That doesn't really. And then on the market side, whether you need to pioneer the technology, which would be up here, or it's almost existing right now. Okay. And what ends up is that when you get these, you'll be able to read it. But the focus is basically not on this here. So this is dangerous down there. And it's basically the focus is on these two and this one sometimes. Okay? So this area is only seed investment, and these are all stages, depending on the execution risk or the creation risk. This is where they take a look and try to put your company into these different boxes. Where are you? Okay? So that's where they would invest, into those different areas. And this is kind of what they look at on return. So in a seed, they would look at an annual return of 75 to 100%, and the time to liquidity 5 to 8 years. So you can basically take a look at which round you're in and kind of how they would expect return to come. Okay? And then the investor ownership, you have the investment that you need here, the expected return, discounted as required return of investment, the future value, and then it gets into formulas and the number of years here as an exponent, and comes with some example numbers here. So if you're doing 2.5 million basically in sales per year, they're looking at 15 times that. In year 5, 2.5 million, they're looking at 15 times that. The investment would be 2 million, the return on investment 50%, holding period of 5 years. And then calculates it down basically to a percentage of 41% as an example here. And what you have then here is post-money is 4.93 million. I mean, it's because it's an example, real numbers. You get that 4.93, and the pre-money value of the company is 2.93 million. And so you can take that formula and plug in your numbers of your company and kind of get a thumb size. Now, I wouldn't assume that you have to go more than 5% upwards, and you should try to get them to go down in the equity, 10%, something like that. So, rule of thumb here, bandwidth of about 15% from that number. 5 up and 10 down.